Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome back to another day. And we are looking at love reading. And in this blessed month of Ramadan, I hope we've been as productive as possible. So I just want to share with you that in this productive time of Ramadan, can we start just looking at the Quran we read. We usually want to read it for blessings. We usually want to do it for just get as much reward as we can in this blessed month. But reward also comes with expanding our horizon in our learning, in our self-awareness, in all those sort of things. So that's why we've been doing this journey through love reading and developing a love for reading. I mean, we can't just be born and love reading. Yes, we love the Quran, we love our deen, but let's just to help you expand that. I've been working through just in the episodes that I've done so far. Is I think what's very important to link it with the Quran, that we should know who our mufassirs are. So over time, one by one, not just because anything that's an overload gets like we've had it. So I started with looking at Imam Tabari as one of the earliest mufassirs and what he has to bring to the Quran. So at least when we're reading or when we're listening to a bayan and when we're being told about something, these names begin to resonate. So all I'm hoping to do in this love reading session is bring enough authors' names, books, personalities on whom things have been written or who themselves have written stuff, and bring that as to showcase. So we need to be familiar, just as we're familiar with brands, we're familiar with shops, so this is a key thing. So anyway, we went through, did one on Imam Tabari, and on a weekly basis I'd like to do some other mufassir. Then we did Abdul Wahid Hamid, Islam the Natural Way. That to me also I'd like to on a weekly basis take you through something which resonates to us holistically. And you'll discover through the books that I share that my passion is for bird's eye view, for having a holistic view. Yes, in-depth study is beautiful and wonderful, and I like to do that too, with the Quran specifically. And then we did also Muhammad Faris and his the productive Muslim. That's a beautiful way of, he's giving us skills. And it was good that early on in Ramadan, let's put our day in order, starting with Fajr. Some of us like to go back to sleep. Some of us are able to be super productive. So those are the kind of thing. And then another bird's eye view we took from Ulum al-Quran of Ahmed van Denver, from Islamic Foundation as a publication. And he also gives us a very good overview of the Quran, how it was put together, what the terms nasikh, mansukh means, and all those sort of things. So that was another way. And now what I'd like to take you through is on another overview, which I like. So on this episode today, it's still early in the days, but why I want to give you all these sort of overview things is then you pick and choose towards the tail end of Ramadan. Where does your interest lie? What is it that you'd like to take more seriously and study that? So the book I have in front of me today is called the Muslim 100, and it's written by an author called Muhammad Majloom Khan, and he's a young person, born not ancient, and he was in university, and I can relate to how he grew up in universities in FOSSIS, that's a Federation of Students in Islamic Foundation in England. And so he's a writer, and he's published a lot, and I relate to these kind of books a lot because they're giving us a history. It's 100 Muslim throughout our history. And what does he have to say in the very beginning? He says the introduction is that our past, present, and future are therefore interconnected and independent. And he would say that our past is more important than our future because we cannot control or shape our future, but we can, but especially if we're not aware, but we are aware of our past, and we can use that to see obviously we say, you know, those who learn from history, those who don't. So in here, he's put down who he thought in our Islamic history are valid people. I love to know that too, because I haven't read everybody. I don't know everything on Ibn Khaldun, Ibn Rushd. I've just heard these names. They were from the golden era of Harun Rashid. He was an Abbasid Khalifa. Who are they? What are they? So he's collected in this book a beautiful connection, but it's always selective. You know, we've got such wonderful people. So he said likewise, and inshallah, I will also want to go through with that book, is he said, like in Hadith literature, there are two very, you know, well-known people, muhaddis, like Asqalani and Imam Nawawi, but he said just because of one who is more widely known than the other, Imam Nawawi, so he selected to do a page on that. And what's lovely in his book is that he's taken all these books. He obviously starts with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but very briefly. And what I like in it is that he gives a timeline. So with the timeline, you have a comparison who came before. He doesn't go through all of them in a historic, a unilateral fashion, but nonetheless, in his just going through his contents, it's Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then the four Sahabis, then some of the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ummatul Mu'mineen, our mothers, and a few of those. But then eventually it goes to like Imam Bukhari, Abu Hanifa, and all that. And then you also see the timeline of where they came. So I'm just going to randomly and briefly go through. Eventually, I might like to go in greater depth on some of the authors, some of these, whether they're inventors or whether they're scholars, and read up more on them about it. But like just on the tip of, it's good to know these things on the tip of our tongue. Things like Al-Bukhari. Now, he was born in 1809. He's giving the Common Era dates and not the Hijri dates, even though they'll be there further on. And he was in which we will call then the 9th century, and he died in 1870. Now compare Imam Bukhari, that Abu Hanifa comes before. So Abu Hanifa, one of the four schools of our fiqh, the four school, how do we say it? So he was born in 700 and he died in 67. So you also see how long the average age was, 60, 70, some maybe more, some maybe less. So these were two that you can actually then read up, because Imam Bukhari we know very well, he's a collector of the hadith. Abu Hanifa we know very well, he's one of the schools of fiqh, and many of us follow him. So it's just good to see what are common threads between these people, and what unique element they brought. Many of them had good parents, so the parenting helped them also be steeped in the same deen. Then another one I like to share or compare, and I'm just looking at it in the book itself, is on chapter 17. He has it on Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. He's also very well known. We've heard the name. So it just gives you, and he tries to keep it to 4 pages for all of them. So that's not difficult for us to read and to comprehend, whether we wish to go through the whole book one by one. And all in all, let me see, how many does he have? He has about how many people? He has about 100. Yes, it says 100. Sorry, the book is called The Muslim 100. So the 100 scholars or well-known people in our history that come up. And comparing Abdul Ghazali, then we also have Ibn Taymiyyah. So you look at his time and measure them, who came first, who came after, and so on. And then sometimes you've heard these names and you're not quite sure which era were they in or how they were. So I want to just look at Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. He was in 1058, that's 11th century of the Common Era. And look at him against Ibn Arabi. He's considered one of the fathers of Sufi and other things like that. So he's 1165. And then what's nice, if you look, it's also good to know now in these 11th, 12th century, which people want to quote Imam Ghazali, and who are think Ibn Arabi was a good person to follow in his thing. And the beauty in, by the time I got to the chapter on Ibn Arabi, you learn that he wrote Ibn Arabi a lot, some in a systematic way, some whatever his outpouring of kashf or of whatever he got, he put down. So he's got a lot of books on those. Then what came up is that you see also the timeline, Ibn Rushd, and I'm just also randomly sharing it for you, but to try and instill of the kind of things you can do for yourself. So look at Ibn Arabi. Who were the others who were not of his school of thought, because they think they accused him not only of misrepresenting the traditional Islamic source, but sometimes it was on Tawheed, on Wahdatul Wujud. These are all things you can learn. What was it? What was it that made him different from the others, Ibn Taymiyyah and other people who didn't 100% appreciate what he had to bring. So again, it's interesting to see, when we talk about us not being so united today, it really, we have a beautiful culture. And if you talk about freedom of speech and, the dynamics of our faith is so much that people did have different opinions, that we were able to counter each other, countering this argument to count. That is all in the book. But the beautiful thing in this book, it tells it to you succinctly. It doesn't go into the deep end, and we're not calling anybody name, this one or that. It just says there was a bit of Ibn Arabi on one side, and Ibn Taymiyyah and Sirhindi and some other names on the other side. Then there was Suyuti and Waliullah Dehelvi, who would use references from Ibn Arabi. So, and I'm also just throwing you endless names and words to try and instill you. Yes, I've heard these names. What are they? Where are they? So I'm suggesting to you this book on the Muslim 100 is a beautiful book to look at and to look for yourself. Oh, so who was he? We've heard his name. Even in English, we know him as Saladin, but Salahuddin Ayyubi, he's also in here. So many of these sort of things, and I'm not, of course, writing to you, but I'm picking up from the chapter in Ibn Arabi, all the others, reformers, scholars, mystics, how many there were and how much they were influenced by Ibn Arabi. Then also interestingly why Ibn Taymiyyah, Abdul Qadir Jilani, other names, they had schools of thoughts within the Sufi frame following them. Ibn Arabi wrote so much, but he didn't create a school. He didn't create a tariqa on the Sufi front. So that's also, I didn't know that, and it was just interesting to see. So a lot of his work still need to be translated, still need to be doing, but I just found that he was also an interesting person to know. Beautifully, there's Umar Khayyam, who I haven't looked up on, but I know I've heard him as a name. The beautiful one I also loved was we have the 4 Khalifas, but then we have another Umar from the time of the Umayyads, and I'm just trying to find his face. I haven't quite found it, but anyway, he is, like, we call him the 5th rightly guided Khalifa, and there's a little bit on him too, and it's beautiful. So I would just strongly recommend, if you can get hold of this book, and it says The Muslim 100, the lives, thoughts, and achievements of the most influential Muslims in our history. And so this Khalifa, so there are so many people. There's even Malcolm X and Muhammad Iqbal and others. So if any of these names I've thrown out to you resonate for you, please look at this book. It's a beautiful even a tabletop book, but for children, for adults. It's like a good old encyclopedia. Yes, you can now Google whoever and whatever you want, but it's always nice to have a book in your hand. It's lovely to have that and to be able to browse through it. Oh, let me read a bit on this. Let me check on these dates. Let me check on this. You can do a better cross-referencing when you have a hard copy in front of you. So with that, I'd like to leave you with this book on the Muslim 100 by Muhammad Maljum Khan, and inshallah, may it give you a takeoff point to enjoy reading. So with that, I'll call it a day for today, and may the rest of our Ramadan go beautifully and with full of barakah. So assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.